We're going to talk about the most likely outcome between Greece and the EU right now. Joining us with his opinion is Joerg Kraemer. He is an economist, chief economist rather, at Commerzbank, the second biggest bank in Germany. He is also a member of the Shadow European Central Bank Council, a body of top European economists that issues its own verdict before the ECB meeting each time around. And we're so glad to have you with us, Mr. Kraemer. Thanks for joining us. What is the most likely scenario? You probably just heard our reporter go over what each country has voiced as its preference. The Netherlands, the latest to weigh in, saying if Greece needs money, it should be a half and half effort, half from the EU, half from the IMF. Is this the most likely scenario?
Well, it's very difficult to interpret. You have to take into account, for example, as far as Germany is concerned, we have elections in North Rhine-Westphalia. This is the most populous state in Germany. The elections are in May. And Germans are very much against help for Greece. Therefore, the German government, for example, don't want to take a clear position. Yeah? Therefore, a week ago they said, no, the IMF should not do the job. Now, the head of a parliamentary group of the Christian Democratic Union in the lower house of parliament said the opposite. That means yesterday he said Greece should go to the IMF. Germany don't want to set a clear position, but I think in the end, in the worst case scenario, Germany will agree.
Joerg, I'm just curious, I mean, whether it's the EU or the IMF, I mean, the German taxpayer at the end of the day has to contribute either way, right?
Sure. But the IMF is perceived as an Anglo-Saxon institution which is more tough on countries such as Greece, and therefore it would be less unpopular among Germans if it's the IMF. You could also say that the IMF has already capital which they can use. That means you can disguise, you can hide the support better, put it this way.
So, Joerg, we haven't discussed whether or not you think Greece is actually likely to need the help. We know that they have a large amount of debt coming due in April. This seems to be the clock that everybody is referring to as it ticks down. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is it that Greece actually needs money?
I would say in the end they do not need money, of course. Ireland, for example, has a big deficit, but it's able to get the money from the market. Yeah? I think there's only a 30% chance or risk that the Europeans have to step in. Yeah? In principle, it would be no problem for Greece. If, however, it's politically difficult to be pushed through, nevertheless, I see only a 30% risk that in the end, the Greece government, Greece needs help, support from the Europeans.
Our reporter mentioned there is a big meeting next week. What is, in your mind, the #1 headline that is likely to come out of that?
Yeah, of course, possible help for Greece. We had already at the start of this week, the finance ministers of the Eurozone met, and they voted for coordinated bilateral loans by the Europeans for Greece in a worst-case scenario. But we don't know any details. And the next week, on Thursday and Friday, where the head of government meets, the so-called EU summit, I think the summit will provide further details as far as help for the Europeans for Greece is concerned. Therefore, I think in the end, the IMF is likely to take only an assistant role when it's necessary to bail out Greece.
Joerg Kraemer, chief economist at Commerzbank, we thank you so much for your time, for your insight.